area, so sports were not really available up through the 8th grade. And so we played a little bit of ball and basketball on a telephone pole, holding up the basket and that kind of outside. Never was in a gym until my freshman year. But we had some activities and lived near lakes, and so in the summertime we had a lot of fun. Of course, in the winter we ice skated and we played hockey. Some of our equipment was homemade, but it was always more important to me to earn a buck than to do some other things. So I was always happy to mow lawns and do whatever I could do. And then I worked at a roadside fruit market, and I probably worked over 80 hours a week, and I'd hitchhike 6 miles in the morning, and I'd be there 10 or 12 hours. It was against the law then, but nobody was enforcing it. So, and I wasn't getting paid very well, but I was making a few bucks every week, and so I did that 2 summers. And then I was old enough to work at Kroger's, and I worked there, and I'd run a checkout lane when they were real busy, and then I got a job when I left high school in January of 1951. I was just turned 17, but I got a job with General Electric in Fort Wayne, and that was the best pay I'd earned to date. And so I had a very immature look at life. Then eventually I volunteered for the draft, and I was in the Army and was sent to Germany, and I was there for a couple of years. And that was the one that, while I didn't love the Army, it was beneficial to me in my life experience to have served. And I come out of the Army, and I still hadn't really thought much about my future. My friend says, "Why don't you go to college? You got the GI Bill." And I hadn't thought about it. Okay. And so I went to college at Ball State. Well, first I started out in counseling. I went counseling vocational. What do I do? And so I took a test, and I should be a mortician or an insurance salesman, I guess. And so, anyhow, they hired me. Someone said, "How'd you ever get that job?" And I said, "Well, they wanted to keep their eye on me." So I was working in the counseling and testing center, and I tested every summer. I would test. The students would come for 2 days, and 2 half days I would test them, maybe groups of 20 or 30 in the morning, and then I'd score the tests in the afternoon and so forth. And so I worked in that counseling and testing center the 3 years I was in college, and I delivered appliances at night, and so my boss at the appliance store liked it because a lot of the people who were buying a refrigerator, for example, were working, and they liked getting a delivery after 5, so I was available. And I had a lot of fun in college. I was very immature in many regards, but I joined a fraternity, and those people, some of them I'm still in touch with. They were great friends. And it gave me, being a rural guy, an opportunity to see and learn from some other people, and I value that. Well, in Indiana I taught elementary 2 years. In Michigan I taught elementary 2 years. And then I become director of a federal project, and I've taught maybe 1 year, 1 class in everything above 6th grade up through seniors, but it was in the business education area. In Florida, I had a very demanding position for 4 years in it. I contracted for group and foster homes for the developmentally disabled in 7 counties. In Florida, that took me all the way from Naples to Sarasota, and there were 7 counties covered, big territory. And that was very demanding, because I had to license and evaluate and contract and pay. And my wife wanted me to resign, and of course, being Bob, I wouldn't. But when I left, immediately 2 people started doing the job, and I thought, yeah, that's better. But it might be because I lived in a rural area, 6 miles from high school, 6 miles from a part-time job, that you really didn't get into the loop until you could drive. And so my mother bought a car. We didn't have a car, but she bought a car, a 37 Chevy Coupe, and that was what I drove through high school. But that allowed me to work at Kroger's, and so forth. And then when I was at GE, I had a few bucks, and that's when I thought that I was doing better than my peers who were going to college. And I bought a new Plymouth convertible, and I thought, wow, this is great. And then years later, I was fortunate in that my wife also liked cars. She probably had to, but we tolerated the hobby. I bought a 60 MGA Roadster, and she was taking kids, our children and other children in the neighborhood, to nursery school. And I was worried because, you have 6 kids in a 2-passenger car. And so I bought a neighbor had a Volkswagen Squareback, and I bought it and sold the MG, and my wife had tears running down her face, but she liked that MG, and I did too, but it didn't fit anymore. So and then we later bought a car called a Saab Sonnet, which was a little 2-passenger fiberglass car, which was really neat. And my son, I was going home from work, and here it is in the Main Street Bridge in Niles. The rear axle is up on the sidewalk against the railing, and my son wrecked it. And of course, typically, I said, "What happened?" The accelerator stuck. And I went, yeah. And so I got lucky, and I found a parts car, and that was there were only 1,500 of them sold, and that was the last year in the USA. But I found a parts car in Bryant Springs. I got out of that very well. He didn't hurt the fiberglass, but he bent the rear axle and the front drivetrain, and it was mechanical stuff. And so we got the car back on the road and everything. It was great. And then I sold it because I told my son, he was not happy, but I said, I don't know where I'll find another parts car. Anyhow, in Naples, yeah. We decided, we'd like to have a car again. Well, I found an Avanti in Wheeling, West Virginia. And Carol says, that's it. And so I thought, well, I bought the car and had it delivered to Naples, and we had a lot of fun there. In my senior year, I met a lady, and we dated, and then I graduated, and Carol had another year to go, and then she graduated, and we married in June of '60, and we were married 54 and a half years, and she passed away in December of 2014. We have 2 children who come into our lives, very valuable children, and so I've really been fortunate to have those 2 children in my life. And of course, with them came grandchildren, which I enjoy greatly. But my wife, she was a great life partner, and while her mother was a great mother and guided her and so forth, Carol, there were a lot of things that maybe her mother did, she never taught her daughter, and so Carol learned on her own. We had very tight budget, and she learned, and our children sometimes would help, but my wife learned how to can and pack and freeze and do all kinds of things to keep us afloat. And those were things that she learned out of a book or on her own. It wasn't because she came into life with that understanding. Everywhere I look here, I see all these pictures, and it's all her. I have an affinity for the river because we built a home on the river in 1973 up in Niles, and somehow I become aware that this complex had apartments on the river, and so I was in Connecticut. I'd been here, but I don't know that Kelly showed me Riverside because maybe there was nothing available. Then I get back and I'm getting these mailings in Riverside, and I thought, what is that? So anyhow, I called her and made arrangements and came back, and she showed me this unit which was being rehabbed at the time. I think the refrigerator was in the dining room, because they were painting and stuff. And when I make decisions, I try not to just go with the first thing I think of. And of the choices I had, I felt, well, for one thing, I've been able to reconnect with people, fortunately. Like on Friday, I meet breakfast people at 8, and then another group at 9. I have coffee. And socially, I have probably more needs than some people, and I know that. But I might as well try to design my life to meet those needs. I think Holy Cross Village is an excellent place to be as a senior citizen. It's well managed, well operated. I think they think of just about everything. If someone has a need, they respond very quickly. I think I can't think of any negatives about it. I'm not searching for any, but they do what they do well. When you get to be my age, life may not be perfect, but we want to make it as good as we can make it. And I think I've done all right on that.